Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I am trying to hit 100K on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. And drop a like on this video so it does better in YouTube's algorithm. No dog in this video, so I apologize for that. If you're not aware of why I'm saying that, I did a post-game recap on Hawks versus Sixers game 1, in which I had my dog sitting on my lap for a portion of it. So if you want to watch that, that is the most recent video up on this channel after that one. And this video, which is obviously my reaction to Clippers versus Mavs game 7, is going up about an hour after when I'm actually recording it, because I have uploaded a video on my main channel about the Mavericks, and I don't want to tank that video's success by putting out this video. So just going to give it a little bit of time to breathe there and then post this one. So it's going to be a little bit later than normal as a result. Although sometimes with how YouTube's processing is, it's delayed an hour anyways, which really pisses me off when it happens, but this time around it was a choice. Anyways, so Game 7 just went down, and the title of this video is probably going to be something like, "Man, what a series," or something like that. And I said earlier today on Twitter that regardless of the result of this game, this was a great first round series. This is a great series, period. And I initially was like, well, this is going to be like a 5, maybe 6 game affair in the Mavericks' favor after those first 2 games. I initially picked Clippers to win in 5. So for all of you who are like, I'm rooting for the Clippers' downfall or whatever, or I was underestimating them, I specifically believed the Clippers would handle this Mavericks team no problem. So if anything, I quite underestimated the Dallas Mavericks. But this ended up being a great series because, of course, Luka Doncic was amazing and carried his team as a result. My family is being loud for the first time in hours downstairs after not saying shit. So perfect timing on their part. I much appreciate it, and I hope they can hear me. Anyways, as I was saying, this series was amazing because of Luka's performance for the Mavericks, and the Clippers, after getting kind of bitch slapped in the first 2 games, end up bouncing back in regards to their effort and their energy. Of course, for the video that went on my main channel, it is reflecting on the Mavericks after their loss, and I also did a video on the Clippers if they would have lost. So I had to account for both scenarios, and one thing that I said was that if the Clippers were to lose this game, it will have been because the effort that they decided to bring came too late, because early on in the series, their effort was just terrible. Their energy defensively, their energy, period. Like, it just didn't seem like they actually cared about the result of the game, did not make the smaller plays, did not do things of that nature, period. And for that reason, that's really the reason this was a series to begin with. Because if they hadn't just had those lapses early, this would probably have been the 5-game series that I expected it to be. But that was not the case, of course. This game was by far their best effort game. Game 6 before that was also great, and Game 5 before that was pretty good, even though I'm pretty sure the Mavericks won Game 5. So you have to give them that credit where credit is due. They definitely stepped up in that regard. That was something that I was worried about with this team, and the reason I was hesitant in them this year being a contender-level team to begin with. But they hammered that out as this series went along. Maybe they should have done it earlier, but they eventually got to that point, and that's what's important. Hopefully they don't just drag their feet to the finish line again against the Utah Jazz in the next round, because they can't afford to do that. So this, I haven't actually talked much about Game 7 in this analysis. I'm more so covering the overall series. We'll only actually talk about this game, and I'll pull up the schedule. The game and the results. So this game, Kawhi had a lot of moments of being amazing offensively, but overall I'd say this was just a pretty good game from him on that end. However, or I should say scoring-wise, where the Clippers and Kawhi as well as Paul George really stood out was defensively and passing-wise. Paul George and Kawhi combined for 19 assists, and I would wager that that's the most assists combined that this duo has had in any game together. So the playmaking was a huge factor, but then also Kawhi specifically, again, something I talked about in that will not be seen video slamming the Clippers for losing Game 7, which they didn't do. I said that no one taking the Luka matchup personally was an issue. Kawhi not putting in the energy and effort on that end, and particularly choosing to defend Luka. Him not making that decision really annoyed me in regards to like, how are we going to keep calling this guy one of the best perimeter defenders in the league if he doesn't have the energy or the effort to actually defend the opposing team's best player that is tearing apart your team's defense. And this time around, Kawhi defended Luka for a majority of the game and defended him well. There was still a good amount of Marcus Morris, who, by the way, had a fantastic game himself, shot 9 for 7 from 3. But regardless, Kawhi took that matchup personally finally, and that's really what was a big deal. I also have to mention both Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard off of the bench. Luke hit back-to-back threes when the Clippers were starting to get separation in the third quarter. Both of those shots were huge. Terrence Mann started off this game getting like the effort type things. And really, the reason why Terrence Mann was standing out in the minutes that he was getting, I'm pretty sure this is the most minutes he's gotten in this series, but in terms of just minutes, or in terms of just standing out in the time that he got, Terrence Mann was killing that. And you know why? It's because while we watched all these other Clippers players not really bring it mentally and effort-wise to the degree that you would like, this second-round pick, who was not a big rotation player, who isn't guaranteed to get another contract in the NBA, he came with the shits because of that. There is something to be said for having a player on your team whose actual position in the NBA is not secure. That makes them more willing to fight, because on top of just fighting simply because they want to win a basketball game, they also want to secure their future in the league. A guy who stands out in that regard to me is Juan Toscano-Anderson of the Golden State Warriors. Juan is not the most talented player in the league for sure. There's a reason why he wasn't much of a rotation player previous to this, but as the season went along, he was the guy who wanted it the most. He was like, look, I might not be able to necessarily control in the short term the fact that I don't have the greatest jump shot in the world. I'm not some great scorer, but I do have it in my control, the amount of energy that I put up. And Terrence Mann brought that every game he played, and his best game was today when he brought that energy. Reggie Jackson, not as great today, being that his last 2 games he was amazing, but still fine. Nick Batum tried to end Boban's career, so that was uncool of him. But other than that, it was really just defensively the Clippers had it handled much better, and their effort was much better on really both ends of the floor. They definitely seemed more ready and focused and going for it and all in and like locked in, and they had all the cliche things that people say about basketball. They brought that today. On the Mavericks side of things, this gets a little ugly. Kristaps Porzingis had probably his best game of the series, which is depressing because he didn't even have a good game. That's really sad when I say it out loud. 0 for 5 from 3, 50% from the field, 16-11. Had a lot of defensive lapses that were really questionable. He had some good defensive moments, but for the most part, not great. I'd actually say Game 6 was probably a better performance from him because he was better defensively in that one, even if his numbers were not as great. Tim Hardaway Jr., the Magic shooting-wise, did not stick around. In my video on the Mavericks that I uploaded after the buzzer, I mentioned that Tim Hardaway was amazing in this series, and it'd be really awkward if he shot poorly in Game 7, and then he shot 5 for 14 and 1 for 9 from 3, so it ended up being awkward. Dorian Finney-Smith was really the only guy outside of Luka that could score the ball, basically. Also, some questionable rotation things in here. So first of all, Trey Burke got 7.5 minutes, and at least to my knowledge, I don't think he played otherwise in this series. Maybe some garbage time here or there, but I'm pretty sure no playing time previous to this. And he got 7 minutes that otherwise would have gone to Jalen Brunson, who was better in his minutes. I semi-understand that, especially because last year Trey Burke was so big in that series that, like, you're like, maybe this will be a guy that can create some offense that's not Luka. But Brunson was already doing that pretty well. So if you're going to take minutes away from somebody, don't take them away from Brunson. Take them away from, like, Josh Richardson or whatever. Maxi Kleber barely played in this game in favor of 31 minutes of Boban. Now, look, I'm not going to be too critical of Boban because, like every other NBA fan, I fucking love Boban. He's entertaining to watch, and he's a very, very nice guy. But he's not that great, and Rick Carlisle treating him like he is the checkmate of this series when it's been proven over and over now that that was not the case. It was not great to double down on that after this. Like, you're going to look at the box score and say that he probably played fine. But if you watch the game, anytime he was asked to do anything more than 3 feet away from the basket on both ends, it did not go well. He did have like 3 different backdoor passes, which was something he did outside of 3 feet from the basket. But other than that, nothing else he brought to the table offensively outside of finishing layups and hook shots. He did have like one really long floater-y hook shot, but that's the extent of it. And then defensively, anytime he was pulled out of the paint at all, like 2% out of his comfort zone, a guy was blowing by him every time. There were a few possessions in this game, especially one on a fast break where Kawhi found himself on Boban, and he just did a jab step to the right, drove left, easy dunk. Anytime anybody was on Boban, really anytime Boban had to defend anybody, it was just torn apart. There were not very many Zubac minutes. He only saw 2 minutes in this game. So we had a lot of Marcus Morris, who, again, went 7 for 9 from 3, spotting up. Meanwhile, Boban is in the paint. And the amount of open threes that Morris ended up getting as a result of Boban just not being able to defend the perimeter was pretty fucking high. So I don't understand why he played so much. And a really questionable decision. I would have rather just had the spacing and the reliability of Maxi Kleber in there and the better defense. It's just, I don't understand that decision. And the first 2 games that he really went to that, the first 2 or 3 games that he really went to that, it was very clear that it was not the best. Like, there were instances where it seemed like that was the checkmate of the series, but as time progressed, it became clear. And later into the games, the lineups would be Maxi Kleber in there. So I don't know why he didn't make that adjustment again, especially as the Clippers started to pull away in the third quarter. I also have to talk about one thing, and I wish this is something that I harped on more in my video that I posted on my main channel about the Mavericks. I talked about it a bit, but excuse me. One thing that Luka should work on this offseason, above all, really, is conditioning. Now, this is not me being critical of Luka in that I believe he is not well conditioned. I just think for what they ask of Luka, which is too much, and they should address that. But so long as they're going to continue to ask that of him, and Luka is going to continue and try and do that, he can't be gassed by the start of the fourth quarter. Now, he played 45 minutes in this game, and he fell 1 point shy of tying the record for most points in a Game 7 in NBA history, while also having 14 assists. If I had to guess, I would wager he has the highest points responsible for, like his points and his assists, of any player in a Game 7 ever. I haven't looked into that. I just feel like that's likely true. And he did shoot well. He shot 57% from the field, 45% from 3, and hey, he shot over 50% from the line for once, so that's good. But as the game progressed, how good Luka was, and this repeated itself over the entire series, especially after the first 2 games. As the games would go on, Luka's impact would drop. And with how much the Mavs offense relies entirely upon what Luka does, if he starts to slow down, the team starts to slow down. Luka will... I got some burps. Luka will have an amazing first quarter. As a matter of fact, I think his first quarter in every one of these games was unbelievable. Like, genuinely. Other than the game where he was injured. I think that was game 4. And even then, he was pretty all right, being that he was injured. But Every other game of this series, Luka came to play and then some in the first quarter. He was ridiculous. Like I tweeted out, first quarter Luka Doncic is one of the best players ever. And that's just how it is. Second quarter, he'd be not as good as the first quarter, but still very clearly very good. Third quarter, he wouldn't be bad, but he definitely not look as good. And fourth quarter, relative to what he was in the first 2-3 quarters, he would just straight up look bad. His field goal percentage in the fourth quarter for the series is not good. And just that issue is something that could be addressed by Luka having amazing conditioning. And again, that's not me saying that Luka has bad conditioning. It's just what is asked of Luka in this amount of minutes for this just stretch of time when the defense is solely focused on you. You have to have unbelievable stamina to sustain that. And so long as Luka doesn't have unbelievable stamina, this is going to be a problem. They could just fix it by getting some actual help for him and players who will hit their fucking three-pointers and not go 0 for 5, 1 for 9, 4 for 7, which is obviously good, 0 for 2, 0 for 1, 0 for 1. 28% overall, and 5 of their 10 makes were from Luka. Getting some actual offensive help for Luka would do wonders in that regard, but at the same time, Luka is probably always going to be asked to play this long, and he can't have the fall off that he does if they want to reach the next level. But yeah, that's it. Again, uploading this like an hour after the initial recording. It is 6:40 right now. So yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and bye. Again, amazing series if I haven't reiterated that enough.